Snow, depending on how you feel about it, is one of Mother Nature's wonders. It can go from making for beautiful winter aesthetics to closing down schools nationwide. For Canadians, it's one of life's unavoidable certainties, right up there with death and taxes. The city of Toronto alone is blanketed by over 40 inches of it per year, but there's way more to this icy marvel than meets the eye. To find out what exactly, I met up with a little friend of mine.
Well, welcome to my office. My name is Chris Murphy. I work at the Weather Network. I'm a broadcast meteorologist. I've been here for 18 years. This behind me, this is the green screen, but it's covered with maps. That's what you would see. And it is my pleasure to give the forecast every morning, Monday to Friday, not only here at the Weather Network, but CBC News Network. I work with Heather Hiscox, and occasionally I get to work with Professor John Northcott, who, let me tell you something, he's one of the most respected people in this industry, so you want to pay attention to what he says. And yes, absolutely, John paid me to say that.
But tell us, how does snow even come to be?
Well, when it comes to snow, it all starts in something we call the snow growth region. And temperatures in the cloud have to be between minus 12 and minus 18 degrees Celsius. If it's not in that threshold, snow's not going to happen. Now, here's the curious thing. So let's say we've achieved that. We have the proper temperature in the cloud. When that snowflake falls, will it remain a snowflake as it hits the ground? Well, if the temperature from the cloud to the ground is below zero, then there's no problem. If, however, that cloud passes through warm air, then it's going to melt and it'll turn into rain. Where things get really interesting, though, is when it's cold up in the cloud and it's sub-zero at the surface, but then in between we have what we call a melting layer. That means that snowflake, as it falls through that melting layer, if it's a small one, it'll just partially melt and then get out of it and then refreeze. And that's what we call ice pellets. Those like the little balls of ice that fall down and sting your face. Now, if that melting layer, though, is larger, that means that that snowflake will completely melt and turning essentially to a raindrop. But the temperature is at the surface is below zero, so that raindrop freezes on contact, and that's freezing rain, and that is the most dreaded form of precipitation you can possibly get.
All right, so we know how snow is born, but are there different types of snow?
All right, and interestingly enough, and I'm sure you've seen this, there's different kinds of snow as well. Now, if it's really cold, that snow is tend going to be very fluffy, and it accumulates quickly, but it's also very easy to blow off your car and brush off your car. The skiers, well, they love that fresh powder. Nothing like it because it coats the hills and it's easy to maneuver on. That tends to happen when temperatures are cold. So if you know if your temperature is going to be, say, minus 10 and we've got snow in your forecast, it's probably going to be that powdery or fluffy snow. Now, if temperatures are closer to 0 degrees, minus 1, then that snow tends to be a little bit wetter, and it can be that heavy snow. Sometimes shoveling it, it's almost like pushing mud, so it can be very difficult to that. So I would say that I prefer the fluffy snow. I think a lot of people do as well, although it does tend to accumulate quicker than wet snow, which sort of clings to everything and can make things very difficult.
Okay. But what about intangibles? We know how snow affects us physically, but does it have a mental or social effect?
Well, you know one great thing about snow is that it's a fabulous icebreaker, and no pun intended. But I mean, this is what unites Canadians: the weather, hockey, donuts, and the weather, to be sure. And I'd like to say that misery loves company. And if you've ever understood why there's only 35 million Canadians in this country, spend a winter here. You'll understand. But this is what unites us. And I find, and this is many years' experience talking here, is that the worse the weather gets, the worse the event might be, the more people that are impacted in a negative way, well, the closer that brings us all together. People inherently want to help others. Whether it's an ice storm and your neighbors is out of power, well, that's when you see the good in people come in. And it's such a great way to meet people. You just casually talk about, oh, this snow, and next thing you know, that conversation goes on, and hey, who knows, maybe a new friend is made.
So there you have it. Snow may make for beautiful viewing from indoors, but it's a wonderfully complex phenomenon that adds to the natural order of life. I'm Andre Henry. I'd like to thank you for watching. Stay warm.